Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to answer a question I think is a really good question, and the question is from Joel. Would you give your opinion of using jigs with rattles or without rattles? When, why, etc.? That's a really good question because I've been wrestling with the question on whether or not to use rattles with my jigs or other baits for a very long time. And I'm going to give you some you know, kind of stories based on experience over the years, not just in bass fishing either. In fact, some of the most profound lessons that I've learned in fishing have been you know, in Alaska too. You know, fishing for other species. You know, it doesn't have to be in Alaska. It could be, you know, fishing for redfish in Louisiana, or even, you know, out hunting in the woods or something like that. I learn a lot from my own experiences. So I can only speak to my own personal experiences, but we're going to kind of dive right into that. First off, gotta apologize for the noise in the background. It sounds like a shooting range. It's music to my ears right now because we've got a crew of hardworking men working on our barn dominium right now. So they are out there with nail guns, just doing some work, man. We got the first level done the first day. They crushed it in 4 hours, and the second level is getting there. And we've got 2 walls, so they're putting some OSB on the side. All right, so as far as fishing jigs with or without rattles, so let's first kind of dive into my thoughts on sound and, you know, making sound while fishing. Does it work, or is it just kind of, you know, something that we think has worked but doesn't really matter to fish? Well, I'll give you a story that may not be as related, but I think it's perfectly related to bass. I think that most species of fish share a lot of common characteristics and habits, but in Alaska we fish for halibut, right? And so we're out in, like, you know, 175, 200 feet of water, and down there you don't have a lot of light penetration. You do have some, and I believe that those fish can actually see pretty good, and so those fish do use their sense of sight. I'm positive that they use their sense of vision to a large extent. I've even put GoPro cameras down to, you know, 175 feet of water. I'm going to put some footage of that on here and try to touch it up so you can actually see it. But it's really cool to actually be able to see down 175 feet of water. So I'm positive that those fish use their sense of vision for a good majority of the feeding, at least the short range feeding that they're doing. But I really do think that sound makes a huge difference. So while I'm guiding out there, very often, you know, if it's a slow day, maybe the tide isn't really, it's kind of in the middle of the tide or getting towards the end of the tide, you don't have a lot of current moving, those fish don't tend to like group up, and it's not like on fire. And so oftentimes I'll have the guests knock that weight on the bottom. So they've got these big, you know, sometimes like 3-pound weights or more, and they knock them on the bottom. And if we haven't been having any success for a while, even if they haven't had a bite in like 30-40 minutes or something like that, as soon as they start knocking that on the bottom, if there's any fish around, all of a sudden they start getting bit. And I think that the reason for that is because, yes, I feel like fish use their sense of sight as their primary feeding, you know, feeding sense, but I think their hearing is also extremely important because it really clues them in from a long distance to that there's something that maybe they want to feed on. And so I think that sound can pull fish from longer distances where their sight or their smell really isn't playing as big of a role, and you know, bring them to that location. And I think that bass are the same exact way, because, you know, we tend to forget as people that sound travels through water more efficiently than it does through air. So a sound that is being made, even something as small as a little tiny jig rattle, it can travel a long ways and pull fish from longer distances, especially when you're talking about situations with low visibility, where those fish really need that kind of audible cue to pull them to that area. So that's kind of, you know, a story that I had based on my own experiences, or you know, a situation that I've faced many times in Alaska and also on the water for bass down here. But let's get to how that relates to fishing a jig. So this jig right here, this is the Z-Man cross-size flipping jig. This is a really high quality jig. It's got a hand-tied skirt. It's got a copper wire hand-tied skirt on there, and really good hook. Just overall, it's got that arky style head that's really popular for flipping, and so it's a really good jig, and I've caught a lot of fish on it. It does not have a rattle built into it. However, you can go out and buy, you know, rattles that, you know, you can stick on the shank of the hook. You can even insert rattles into baits, even though, or trailers, you know, even though like a Lastec really doesn't work all that well with those type of insertable rattles. So I usually use the type, and I don't have one here unfortunately, but I usually use the type that it has like, it's like 2 arms, and they almost look like their own little appendages themselves. I'll put a little you know, a screenshot of those on there, but they do make a sound. They make a rattle just like that. A lot of people tend to downplay the importance or even the viability of a jig rattle. I've heard a lot of people say it doesn't make any sound under the water. I disagree. I think that it makes a very subtle sound, but it's very important to realize that, again, fish can hear even those very subtle sounds. And in fact, I think that they are conditioned to really be keyed into those subtle sounds. I mean, the sound of a crawfish clicking its little, you know, teeth and whatnot, you know, I don't think they're teeth, but clicking whatever they got in their mouth hole to make that noise while they're eating, you know, I don't think that that's very loud. I think it's very subtle clicking that those fish are really conditioned to. So I really do think a rattle does play a role. However, all right, so I'm going to kind of get to the meat of what I'm trying to get to here with the jigs. If it's clear water, if the fish are able to use their sense of vision more so than any other, you know, sense, you know, if it's real super clear water, they can see 20, 30 feet or whatever, I don't think that the jigs are very helpful. I don't think that they're very important. I think that you can get away with it. So when I'm fishing, you know, a football jig, I'm usually fishing a little bit clearer water, finesse jig, something like that. I don't think that you need to fish a jig or a rattle on a jig in those clear water, high visibility situations. However, I really do think that if you're faced with conditions where you've got dirtier water, where maybe those fish, you know, need that audible cue to pull them into the general area of your presentation, like fishing dense cover, you know, it could be, you know, a fish is like, you know, on the other side of a really dense bush or something like that. If you pitch into one side of the brush, it doesn't have a rattle on it, maybe that fish doesn't know to go search out that bait on the other side. And so I think that in low visibility situations, a jig rattle can really play dividends, and I've seen it time and time again. I've been in situations where I swear it made a very profound difference. It was like night and day. And so yes, to answer your question, Joel, I definitely do like to throw rattles on jigs, but it's primarily during low visibility situations, dirty water, cloudy conditions, heavier cover. But if I'm fishing open water with clear water, I don't think that it's necessary at all. But I'm on the bandwagon of sound, of rattles. I really do think that sound is a big important part of how fish feed, and so I definitely play to that sense. I think that fish are really curious, you know, even if it doesn't sound like something that's natural. I think that they're very curious, and when they start hearing things, that's when they start coming from longer distances to come, you know, investigate and see what it is. But anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on rattles or no rattles with jigs. Let me know what you think about this topic in the comments below, and also drop your own question below that I can answer in a video like this. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to see you out on the water.